Well, hello and welcome. We're here for week 3 of season 3 of the WTRL Zwift Racing League. Tonight, we kick off with APAC. I'm Kate Bates. I'm joined by the one and only Anna Russell. And Anna, we've got a bit of a cracker here tonight. We're heading to New York City, the city that never sleeps, for the KOM after party.
Yeah, this is a good course. I reconned it earlier in the week, and it kind of maybe a little bit of a sleeper here. It looks like it could be easy, but then once you start riding it, wow, there are some ups and downs. I don't think there's any flat at all on this course. So there's a lot of points up for grabs. So you can see the map here. You go through the New York Sprint. You can just see that little blue dot went through there. You go through that 3 times. You've got fastest time segment and first across the line points. Then you go up onto that glass road after that third lap, hit the NYC Ford KOM, and that is a brutal 3 to 4 minute full power effort to finish off the race on legs that would be very tired.
Yeah, well, and like you said, the Gotham Grind reverse lap, it is far from flat. In fact, nothing in the New York City world is flat at all. I think the moment you get on a flat piece of road, it goes up or down again. Now, the big difference, I think, between the Libby Hill KOM reverse that we saw last season and this is that climb at the finish is much more brutal. It's longer, it's steeper. And Anna, I reckon we'll have some riders that are only there for the points tonight, for the sprint points, I mean.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, ideally, you want a team that's kind of split into two. You want the ones targeting the sprints, because I think you can't do both. You can't target the sprints and then go full noise up at some points a 14% grade. However, at the finish line, you've got fastest time segment up the KOM, you've got first across line up the KOM, and you've got the overall finish points. So whoever wins the race is going to have an absolute haul of points to come through tonight. So you definitely want to have one rider on each team who is just relaxed in that bunch, chilling out, not getting into any trouble, and full focus on that final climb.
Yeah, it is absolutely points galore out there. And on top of that, with those intermediate sprints, we have the bonuses as well. So the power-ups, we've got the burrito, the aero, and the feather this week. Anna, they could make a crucial difference, especially a very well-timed feather on that final climb.
Definitely. I mean, we're not going to see the same contentious power up we saw maybe with the steamroller last week. Some people loved it, the ones who got it, and some people hated it, the ones who didn't. That would be myself, because you immediately got dropped. But burrito power up, one of my favorites as well. I think they made some tweaks to it quite a while ago now that just made it so much more awesome in game. So you drop that, and behind you, a radius doesn't have a draft. So not just the rider directly behind you, but the whole group of riders. It's basically like dropping an explosion and everyone's just fragmented off. So makes it really exciting. You've got to talk to your teammates, because you do not want to drop that right in front of a teammate. Suddenly they've lost the draft. What you want to see is everyone sprint in front, drop it, no one can get back on. So I'm excited to see how people use it tonight.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, Anna. Now, before we get down to the racing, let's take a look at how things are so far, so we can have a bit of an idea of who's in it for what this evening. So let's take a look at the women's division. One here, TBR Smile on B. They are leading the way, 2 points ahead of Zed Sun Real, with 37 points also for the AHDRL Bam Babes, so that's a good race. The Bombshells sitting in 4th on 35 points. The BRT Fiery Kittens on 5th. Another AHDRL team, they are stacking the results in this division with We Race 4 Cake and Phenomenal. Goodness me, I twisted my tongue around that one. Sitting in 7th at the moment.
And looking at the C division, TBR Smile On, I do have some insider info from some of the Smile On and other teams, so we'll share that later on the show. The AHDRL Crazy Cakes in 2nd, AHDRL Cruzettes in 3rd, the Herd of Corellas in 4th, AHDRL Spin Mafia close behind in 5th, Rave C Aussie tied there in 6th, AHDRL Degenerates with the TZP Lacklax in 7th and 8th, CMA Queen Bees in 9th, and TBR Party Bus, love that team name, in 10th.
It's always some great team names, aren't there? Let's take a look at Div C. We've got AHDRL Diamonds leading the way there, Rave D Aussie in 2nd, the Daiquiris in 3rd. Now there's a team name I like. The Herd of Bilbies in 4th, and Mums Australia Girl Power sitting there in 5th.
And to the men's now, Division A, DPAC Elite in 1st, Aero in 2nd, Relentless Anarchy in 3rd, but tied with the Evo Savages, the Magenta train there, in 4th, Eat Dirt Aces in 5th, Cryogen Super Banyers in 6th, KRTA Suck My Kiss in 7th, you've got to be careful with that one, 8th, Smooth As Sun, 9th, Team ZWC Blast, and 10, the World Elite Zwifters Sharks.
All right, let's take a look at the Div B. We've got the Dirty Sprockets leading the way there, equally with AHDR Blowflies, the WMZ Bees sitting in 3rd, Eat Dirt Reynolds in 4th, the WTRL Mercenaries in 5th, TV Gungnir in 6th, the Dirty Sprockets Haithra, I need to look up what that is, a mountain perhaps, in 7th, Aeropress in 8th, the Z Sundries in 9th, and Velo Club Mayo Sables, presented by Cycling Tips, longest team name in the league, rounding out that top 10.
And looking at C here, HDR Cruisers in 1st, very close there, good battle between 1st, 2nd, 3rd, Dirt and Ernie, the AHDR Commodores in 3rd, Herd of Aussie Ants in 4th, WMZ Chasers in 5th, Cryogen Altide in 6th, Evo Flux 1 in 7th, Eat Dirty Calories, that's a great one, in 8th, TZP Charlie in 9th, and TBR 46 Tooth in 10th.
Dirt and Ernie, those dads inside riding trainers have possibly had a little bit on the TV for their kids while being able to get on their trainers. AHDR Drafters are leading the way in the D Div, Zero Dark Dirty in 2nd, the Dodgers sitting in 3rd, the Herd of Nimble Numbats in 4th, Delta in 5th, the Dirty Deeds, they are sitting in 6th. And across the board, we've got some pretty tight races emerging already. I can only imagine that this week there'll be a lot of very motivated people to go out and get some crazy points. Will it be in those intermediate sprints or will they save it up a little bit for the end? I think you're also right with the burrito power up. If that is used wrong and not communicated, you could actually end up kind of sending a few of your teammates over the red line there. So a few strategic things to think about.
Oh, for sure. This is a race with a lot of tactics. I've been helping some of the teams I work with around the tactics for the race, and it's just so dynamic. You don't really know what to do until you see what's happened after that first lap, how much has it been whittled down to, who are the riders with you, try and get rid of the climbers as quick as you can. But after the sprint, it's a 4% climb. So all those climbers can kind of just jump back on. So do you do a over-the-top sprint? It's just, the whiteboard's been going crazy, Kate.
Well, essentially, we watched the Amstel Gold Race the other night. We were talking about it before we came on air, and there are a few missteps tactically there, let's just say that, as well as some brilliant ones. But the finish tonight isn't that dissimilar, so perhaps we might get some of our community riders taking a little bit of inspo from the World Tour there as well, because I know a lot of people have been staying up to watch it. Let's jump down to the racing and to the pictures when we can, because we want to see what is happening out there. I don't think there'll be a dead moment on a course like this, about 37K in total. And like we said, not a flat meter on this course.
Now, I'm quite interested in the bike selection. I've had a few questions, and Kate, you were on holiday last week, but you missed a stellar chit-chat around disc wheels and rolling resistance, momentum, deceleration, acceleration. I mean, it was a full geek out. But I'm not seeing many discs. I did wonder how many people would use Tron, and it looks like that is definitely the bike of choice. Not sure what Alexander's doing here. Just got a 1 second lead off the front. That's using a lot of watts early on. Looks like they've actually jettisoned a few riders already off the back. So this is our lead group up the front, rolling along pretty quickly. Alexander maybe just needs to just chill out a little bit, jump into the pack. Don't get too excited too early, because there's some pretty brutal climbs coming up, and good little sprint as well that you need all that energy in the legs for.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation about bike choice. I do feel like what's really emerged over the last 2 seasons was that there is a very big, strong consideration about style over substance. So even though there might be faster setups, some people are still often opting to look a little bit funky with their bike and their whole setup rather than purely going for what could be the best setup in game. So it's an interesting conversation around it and what they choose to have. What I can definitely say is how good does the team look, though, the TV on Smile On crew, with those matching trons and that kit? Like it really does come together very well.
I mean, it was why I voted them as one of the best dressed kits of season 2. They do look great. They do match their trons. They tick all the right boxes. So I do like what they're doing there. I do think people are picking a bike that looks very good with their kit, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm fully for that. But it is interesting to see no disc wheels, because I was potentially going to be using a disc in my race tomorrow, just because I thought the New York course, just there's going to be so much drafting in these early stages around just these laps of Central Park that you want to just make this part as easy as possible for yourself. But I'm seeing no disc wheels, so I'm beginning to question my choice, I think.
Yeah, that's well, I don't know, Anna. I mean, you're the one with the whiteboard. I feel like maybe you've got a little bit of knowledge there, inside knowledge as well. Of course, the other consideration is whether they have access to the disc wheels, because that is something that on a one-by-one basis, some of the athletes aren't at the level where they actually have access to all of that equipment. So we have to bear that in mind as well. What we do know, though, is if they're on the Tron bike, they've had a lot of time in game, climbed a lot of vertical meters, unless they're dingoes like me and they've climbed the meters but forgot to sign up for the challenge. And they would be the ones on the very ordinary looking bikes feeling a little bit ripped off.
Nice. I do want to shout out to Smile On here. I've been given a list of all their nicknames. So we have Captain Tow Truck Tess, Style Queen Sarah, Comet Class Carolyn, Dance Move Dawn, Know My Limits Lucy, Loves to Go Long Linda. She's been up the Alp to Zwift more than 200 times. Very impressive.
Jeepers.
And their I know that's a lot. I'm not even at 25 yet. I think there's a badge for 25. And their DS is Kick-Ass Kimberly. So that's Smile On B team. And they've also got a C team led by Wonder Wheels Wendy. And they've got their party bus crew as well. So when we check out on the C's, we'll list all of those, because there's some great nicknames that I'm seeing for those riders too.
Oh, I love them having a little bit of fun. So they're now 6 kilometres into that 37. We do have 3 laps around the reverse Gothic grind. While there aren't any flat really meters out here, it's also not particularly steep or long. So we kick up to 8% here, but it does not last very long. They go over the top. If anything, it's a little bit of a leg grinder. This would suit quite a tenacious rider who could maintain some pretty high powers over these little rollers if they were to go solo. But I'm feeling like there might not be the appetite to do that, Anna. And we saw this quite a lot last season, actually, with some of the tougher courses, that they tend to ride a little bit more en masse and get those sprint points. And then when that final sprint has been done, then that's when it really starts to heat up for that final climb.
Yeah, it's interesting here just to see the Smile On rider going off ahead. They're going to be hitting like a little bit of a downhill kind of drag here. It's interesting. This course is also quite tricky because there's a map on the top right-hand corner, but it often just goes flat because you can take little shortcuts, which they just did through what I'd call the baseball fields. And when you do that, the whole map just goes away. And so it's very hard sometimes if you've been looking at that to go, oh, I've got a climb coming up, or it's flattening off, and suddenly it all disappears and then it reappears and you're in a different place. So it is a little quirk of the New York course that it does that a bit. So yeah, it can be tricky if you're trying to figure out where to put in some effort, but it is going down to, yeah, like I said, just around that -1, 0%. They'll be starting to get a little bit twitchy as they're getting very close to hitting this first sprint segment. And I think this pack looks like there's about 40 riders in here. I think this will go down to about 20.
Yeah, this is a pretty big group. It's unusual to see such big groups often, even at this early stage in the race. I think something I really noticed in the last season in particular was how aggressive it was off the line. But I'm not sure that that's necessarily in the favour even of the leading teams. So that's an interesting consideration as well.
We do see the sprint coming up here and opened up very early by Lucy from TBR. It looks like Lam Kong, one of our fave riders out there, who I've been told is 15 years younger than some of that TBR team, coming up very strong at 12 watts a kg there. She's going to roll over the top, take all of these points. It looks like Kong here coming up. You can see the grade going up to 4%. Interestingly, I'm seeing they would have just picked up a power up here. I think that's why we saw none being dropped on that sprint. But Kong, Lam Kong, amazing sprint there. Just those watts with that afro, huge numbers.
I'm not sure the afro contributed to the watts, but they were very big watts. And the first sprint is out of the way. It's a bit of an indicator of who is here for those sprint points. Little gaps are starting to open up. The legs are starting to hurt. This is always a prime time for an attack over the top of that kind of effort. Not only for the riders like Kong, who had just gotten a gap naturally by the way she sprinted, but also for some of the riders who may have sat in and not had to do too much work. They might have had a good wheel all the way to the line. And I've just noticed that all of the Bam Babes have that matching afro, so that's pretty cool. Makes it a bit harder to
noticed that
pick
as well.
The riders, but but that might actually be a bit of a tactic, Anna, that it makes it hard for others to pick their avatars, and they then need to actually look to the list and look to the pictures to try and figure out what happened. So let's take a look at the replay here, Anna, and it was TBR Smile on Lucy who dropped that first watt bomb and accelerated off the front. She looked to have a bit of clear distance too, but Kong, look at this sprint and acceleration. The number of watts per kg edging toward 12 there. She looked to do that pretty easy, and the timing on that was beautifully done.
That was amazing. I mean, great timing. I saw there M. from France also had very high watts, but just opened up a little bit too late. But that was, I mean, Lam Kong knows this stuff. She knows what she's doing, and there we go. It was taken. I would imagine that would be fastest time segment as well from her. I'm not entirely sure. Here they've I just actually saw a burrito being dropped. They've just hit that Catpaw Hill, I believe it is, coming around to finish lap 1. They went up there into a brutal climb, goes up to about 8%, and it kind of just keeps on going as a little false flat for quite a little while now. So it's a really brutal way to finish the lap, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some attacks. Like I said, this is down to about 20 riders now, that front group, from what looked like about 40. So it has been halved after that first sprint and going over lap 1 here, with Daru here you can see dropping off the pace, unfortunately, because she's sort of in no man's land, 6 seconds or 8 seconds behind the group in front, 7 seconds ahead of the group behind. Just will get swallowed up by that group behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, this is a tough position to be in. If you got a burrito power up through one of those sprints and were in a fairly good position, it would actually be a really dangerous time to use it for those around you, because it's often after those efforts that everybody's really hanging on that draft and really relying on it. So it could be quite a deathly time to use it, but maybe not in the first lap, especially when you're likely to still have a couple of teammates who would likely get in a little bit of trouble if you were to do that. But depending on what power up you get, it can make a real difference, not only to the outcome of the race, but also the tactics that are available to you.
I mean, the time I want to see it used is up that KOM. It actually has 3 climbing parts and then 3 bits that sort of flatten off, and you can still draft on those flat parts. What I want to see is a teammate who just hoards the burrito for their climbing teammate. They go up and she drops that burrito on one of the flat portions, and the climber goes with no ability for anyone to draft. I think that would be a great time to use that burrito in a time that people may not expect it, because you can draft on those sort of flatter portions of the climb. It's not a 14% grade the entire way up, and they could drop a feather. and get away and have no one really be able to draft off them. So we'll see if anyone uses it in that respect. But I think for these laps, using it at the next sprint, I think we'll see a lot of those being dropped with hopefully their teammates not caught up in the melee behind.
Yeah, you're nasty dropping it on that climb. That's just a brutal way to do it. But it's smart. And if the team managers are smart, they'll be listening to you as well. So let's just take a look at those segment points thus
Oof.
far. So we have first across line and fastest through segment there as well. So Lam Kong taking the first points ahead of Lucy Esdale. Sky Talbot sitting in third. Great riding there from the Bam Babes. With first and third there. Margot Jacquet sitting in fourth. Willemijn de Roo in fifth, but she paid for that a little bit. Carmen Rakovic in sixth. Caroline Strasser in seventh. Simone M taking out eighth. Kate Braderick in ninth. And Gokya Paul sitting in 10th. That is a lot of points to accrue for Lam Kong there. With that fastest through segment as well as first across line. That'll be a hard one to beat, I think.
Well, and you look at the Bam Babes, they've already accrued 42 points in lap 1. I mean, that's massive. That's a team that knows how to sprint and knows how to gather those points. Looking at the TBR Smile On team, I see just a rider in second and a rider in seventh. So, yeah, it's those Bam Babes have come out on all cylinders. It's the matching team Froze, I think, made a huge difference this week.
Yeah, we saw a couple of times last season when this first fastest through segment came in, that what we observed from the race in terms of points and performance often varied a little bit from the overall points table because of that 20-point bonus of the fastest through segment. So in fact, if Lam Kong were to not accrue any more points in the next two, she would still be sitting up toward the top of that table. So it does make quite a difference. And strategically, if you want to send a rider out there to have a crack at the fastest time, as well as the first across line, it's a pretty good way to do it. And then they can, strategically as well, Anna, she can then recover and challenge for the KOM. So she can essentially sit in for the next couple and not worry herself too much and still be on the top of that points table.
Yeah, and saying that though, we once had an instance in our team where our best sprinter got dropped because there was a climb before the sprint, and she was in a sort of little chase pack, and all she did was keep a drafting power up, drop the drafting power up, and get fastest time segments across the next 2 laps. So there are riders who can be in chase packs who then just ride a sort of zone 2 ride, have a good drop of a power up, use a couple of teammates, and just gain all the fastest time segments. That's how we actually ended up winning the race. So there are things you can do when you are in that chase pack. If you're on Discord, just sort of chatting away, they'll be able to see what that fast time is through the sprint. Just seeing here, looks like this is the C category, and this is the Crazy Cakes team. C here, can't quite see the first name, has put in a big dig to break away from the pack. This is just through that little baseball fields area that I was talking about, where the sort of map on the top right goes a bit flat and you can't tell where the climbs are coming. But she'll take a left-hand corner, go into a long, steady uphill drag. If she can keep these watts at around that 3 watts a kg, like she is doing now, she'll be able to keep that pace away. Already 4 seconds ahead, it looks like.
This is a good gap. This is a dangerous gap as well. They're pretty early in the race, so 12.5k into the 37 odd. Using the power up, that means she's kind of serious in establishing this gap, and especially on that 4%, using the power up then allows her to keep that speed up through this section, which can be a bit of a burn. It has come back quite dramatically and quite quickly for her there, which is a bit of a quirk of in-game sometimes. It looks like they're not there and then all of a sudden they pop back up. But I'm pretty excited by the animation, Anna, because, I love seeing an aggressive race. And sometimes while it's not always the smartest way to race to be super aggressive from the get-go, it sure makes for good racing and interesting commentary.
Oh, for sure, it's fun, and it's we are just seeing this is the Secret Smile On team that's out riding around. So we'll just mention what their nicknames are. We've got Captain Wonder Wheels Wendy, Motor On Margarita, Slingshot Sarah, Jump on Board Julia, and Everything to Race for Evie, and Fast Finish Fran. And I think you'll like this one, Kate. The TBR Party Bus. Tequila Shot Tina, Beachcomber Bridget, Long Island Iced Tea Louise, and Singapore Sling Stacey.
I do like that. You're right. I think it's they serve it interesting, those ladies, don't they? With all of their
I love it.
Crazy nicknames as well as team names, as well as haircuts. Might I say they always have a mohawk or two in there, a speed hawk maybe. Maybe it is,
Oh, for
but
sure.
it is good that they engage with that as well. And I see a lot of these ladies doing the community rides as well, having a chat to everybody. Like they just seem like quite a fun group of ladies who are there not only for their own gain, but to sort of shepherd other people through the game. And I think that that's why we've seen a real proliferation of these TBR Smile On teams as well. Each season we get more of them across the leagues, which is pretty cool.
Exactly. We see Crazy RC from Crazy Cakes here again, the Welsh rider, just pushing a little bit on that down and then the up again. I think she's just feeling really, really good, pushing a little bit higher than everyone around her and getting little sort of gaps off the front that are swallowed up relatively quickly. But I like her, obviously feeling good and wants to show everyone that she's out there to play tonight.
Yeah, it's good. It's good aggressive racing. You do a bit of team directing as well, Anna. What would I know that you don't want to give too much away because you also race. However, what would your guidance be on a course like this for a team that had a good strength and numbers? Would you tell them to get out there and get aggressive, or would you tell them to kind of play a bit of a waiting game?
Yeah, I've sort of said that lap one is definitely be very, very alert. So stay in the top third of the bunch for lap one and just be very aware of any attacks happening anywhere, because like we're seeing now, there's attacks kind of happening all the time and it's just pushing the pace. And if you're sort of at the back of the pack and get caught out, like we saw earlier with one of the B category riders, they just got dropped off very, very quickly. So that was the first thing, very alert in lap one. Lap two, once the break is made, we saw that before, it went from about 40 riders to about 20. That's where I think you can just make the party happen. If you've got 6 riders or 5 riders up in that front group, just put in some awesome tactics, smash some new sort of PBs through the sprint, just mix it up a little. I think that's what makes it exciting. This is the kind of course that can be super exciting. You kind of just don't hope everyone rolls around and drafts in a group for the entire sort of 30K before they hit that glass road. But yeah, mix it up in laps 2 and 3 for sure.
All right, we're going to head over and check out the fellas that are out on course. And as always, Anna, it's always very exciting leagues here. We've got the B men. So they've got a pretty big field tonight, 81 riders. A bit of a different dynamic with so many numbers.
Yeah, we are looking at the B category here. I'm just checking. I saw a K McKay. I'm wondering if that's Kath McKay.
I saw that as well. Kath McKay. It might be. Bearing in mind that this is actually mixed. So we say men, but it is actually a mixed league. It's just we don't often see too many women, especially in the higher divisions of that.
And we don't often see them making that front group selection. So they'll be very impressive. And Kay Banerjee, is that not a female racer as well? Have to check it out, but these guys are approaching the first sprint, and we can see Cesar's here from the sprockets taking an early little dig. I think definitely a bit too early. It pushes up to around 4%. Going to be getting pretty close, not quite to the sprint. It drops down. You can actually see the sprint the whole way. It's about 230 meters. These guys are going very, very early. Goes down, maybe they're trying to pick up momentum. There you can see on the right, the sprint has just started, goes down, and then with about 80 meters to go, pushes up to that 4% grade. Almost the best power up for this, I do believe, is the feather. You could drop it about now and get the acceleration up into the climb, and then be able to carry that acceleration with the feather through this 4%. That was almost a complete rollover there. Didn't seem to be a whole lot of competition for that first sprint in this men's division.
Yeah, that was an early move. We do know, though, that fastest through segment is often gained on that first lap. There's always one person that has it clearly on their mind that could account for that a little bit. But that was an interesting sprint result there. We'll get the results up when we can. But there's still a very big group that is all coming back together now.
I just saw some burritos being dropped there too. Interesting time to be dropping those. It looked like riders who are in a bit of trouble dropping off the back, but it doesn't actually really help you if you're in trouble and dropping off the back to then prevent everyone behind you from drafting and potentially helping bridge the gap up. So it's more of an aggressive power up, I would say, rather than a reactionary one. When you see people dropping a drafting or an aero sort of at a quiet part of the race, that's an immediate signal that they're in trouble, in my mind. But
yeah,
you
it
don't
is,
want to be
isn't it? You're kind of giving it away for people too. I wonder when the feature will come in that or if it will, that you can actually hide when you're using a power up, or what's going on there, because it does change when people. It's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it? Like, data aside, it's a way for people to go, oh, it's like
they're in trouble.
A suffer face, you know?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's you can just see another burrito being dropped. I just maybe they're just trying to get rid of it because they are hitting this hill coming up to the end of lap 1. I do think that's gone very fast for this men's BCAT, and they've just ditched a whole lot of power ups. You're seeing a lot of arrows being ditched there, which is quite interesting. I would have thought for the sprint there would have been one to hold on to, but like I said, I think the feather is the best. I actually did an analysis. You'd be surprised, Kate, an analysis on this of the
yes, on a
whiteboard
board by chance.
Yeah, it was looking at the race last season that finished with a sprint in the volcano, which went up to about a 3% grade just at the end. Feather was the best power up to use, and so I think these guys might realize that because of that increase in elevation heading into that sprint, they know the feather's the best. So that's maybe why we saw a whole bunch of arrows being ditched there right before they got a new one.
And I have taken a look on that start list, and you're right, there are a number of the aero ladies that are actually in there, giving it a very good crack. Kath McKay, Katie Banerjee, Jess Bemrose, they're actually doing really well, so that's unreal. And when I say actually doing really well, I mean absolutely no disrespect by that. It is unreal to see the women out there, but this is the first season we've seen this, and there was last season a bit of dominance in the ACAT for the women that I think led to a little bit of frustration that they didn't have a lot of depth. And so this season we've actually seen the B category really build out and have a lot more depth. And it looks to me, I did wonder where some of these ladies had gone, and I think we've just found our answer.
Yeah, exactly. So they've hit this B-Cat men's mixed division. We are heading back over to the women's B category, I do believe. I do want to touch on a comment I've just seen from Sam Crofts on the live stream and through YouTube, saying that because there's no power up in the first lap sprint, because they haven't gone through a banner yet, everyone knows that the fastest time segment will be lap 2 this week, not lap 1. That's controversial. I almost want to beg to differ, because I still think if you're in a group of 40 riders and you sprint from the back, even without a power up, that draft benefit through 40 riders is massive. We have seen that Lam Kong in the women's field has still set the fastest time segment, and that was done on lap 1, I do believe. So I could be wrong. It has known to happen. There is no drafting power up in the race tonight, so I do think lap 1 could still be an option for fastest time segment. But it's a good point. I do like it, Sam. It's a good point.
Yeah, it kind of goes to show, I think, that they're really thinking about it, that the tactics have really evolved over the last couple of seasons, Anna, where they're going out there now and it's not just about who can produce the most watts and when. There's really a lot of gamification in the strategy, which I think is really cool. And the other thing I always consider when we're talking about a fastest through segment is even if you feel better after you've warmed up a bit, often, depending on the profile of riders, but often these more, let's call them endurance based, because when they're racing for 35 kilometres, they're not Anamirs. The endurance based riders often really only have one very high power sprint in them. And so even if they feel pretty comfortable in the second one, their time often will be hard to beat if they have done a full out effort before. That might be controversial as well for anybody who is a big fan of Peter Sagan or someone like that who is riding for the green jersey at the Tour de France. But I've seen a lot of people try, to repeat efforts and stay fairly consistent, but not able to better it. So I personally would be surprised if we see anybody go faster than Lam Kong, but not just because of that first lap effect, but I think based on those 50 points she's got so far, she's just the quickest out on course today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of a cyclist you were, Kate, back in the day, if you're a sprinter or not. I'm definitely not a sprinter, but I tried it once in one of these races to do the all-out sprint, and I got some points, not even first, I think I was about fifth, and then shattered into 1,000 pieces and really couldn't keep going. So I think you're totally right. You got to know what your strengths are. And it's so hard sometimes not to just go, oh, how hard is the sprinting? I'll just give this a shot. It is hard if you are not good at it. So yeah, I think know your strengths and maybe just chill out for the sprints here and go for that KOM if you are more of a climber.
Well, the chat that was happening today from Wes Salmon from Zwift headquarters was talking about hiding the data on screen so that you could choose to hide your power or your speed or whatever it might be. And they've talked about it being a really immersive way to race where you're not looking at the data so much as you're just looking at the races, and it's a little bit more around strategy and what the other riders are doing, which I think is really interesting. And I also think it's really interesting for riders who have maybe never raced IRL or with a power meter outside of having all of this data in their faces, that sometimes you're capable of a lot more than the numbers you think. And sometimes, without even really meaning to, you might see some big numbers on screen and have a perceived fatigue that may or may not be matching what you're actually capable of on the day. So I think if you put out a lot of watts in that first sprint, it can mess with your head a little bit. So it's interesting to consider what the race would look like differently if they did take away all of these powers and what kind of riders may in fact hide it. Would you hide it, Anna, or would you keep all the data on screen?
Oh, I keep it on screen. I think it's sometimes
you like your numbers.
A nice.
Of course you do.
I like
Have
the
you got a whiteboard in the background behind your screen?
Just whiteboarding while I race. I was a little distracted because our producer was just sending me your Wikipedia page, Kate. So I was just having a read of that to see. Were you a sprinter? And it looks like yes. Would you say that was particularly a strong point? Okay. So then I'll pick your brains on that. You're approaching a sprint.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's
take the power ups. Yeah, take the power ups off the table. How do you approach a sprint? How do you get that timing just right? Is it just you do it so many times that you got the feel, or do you have particular? I know my power is best over 75 meters. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it is something that I think you really have to learn. That's the experience that comes over the years with sprinting. Certainly what I notice on the road and also or the track or in the Zwift world is you'd have different profile sprinters. So you have some sprinters who can accelerate incredibly well for a couple of seconds and then hold it. You've got some other riders who their acceleration isn't that good, but they can continue to build over a 10-second period, and they'll make up a lot of ground, certainly in the late stages of the sprint. And so often, if you're the kind of rider who just accelerates really well, you'll often just sit and wait for that wheel, and wait until the opportunity comes. But if you're a sprinter that can go long, and somebody goes early, it's a perfect opportunity to jump on the wheel, and then roll over the top of that. So for me, I didn't necessarily have that super explosive, high-end speed. And so I was also always wanting the sprint to be quite high speed, and that's where you use your teammates. So you can use teammates very effectively in a sprint, and we've seen it happen very effectively in the Zwift world, in sprints as well. But you do then need to communicate very well. It's a bit different in the Zwift world versus IRL, when you can read body language and body cues as well. So I think that there's a lot of perfecting that's going on, especially in Discord. God, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these conversations in the final couple of kilometres. I feel like there might be quite a lot of yelling going on, and perhaps grunting through very high heart rates when that's the only way that you can communicate. But yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you kind of get to rely on some certain things like positioning based on body language. And when you remove all of that, it's a bit of a different thing. But what I can tell you is, if you're not in the top 10 going into that final sprint, unless they're just rolling it in, there's really no sprinter in the world who can ever still get a podium there. So it's definitely a lot of posturing, Anna. You got to be in it to win it.
Got it. Okay, well, I am not a sprinter. I'm not sure I can posture at all.
Get a lead out, Anna.
I think if you have I'll get a lead out.
Yeah, get a good lead out, and if they make it fast enough that no one can really come around, that might be your way.
Okay, there we go. We are watching the next sprint opening up here in the men's B category. Evans here already hitting those orange numbers and going very quickly into this little climb now, heading into the sprint. I'm very surprised not to see almost any counter-attacking or competition here for that sprint. So Sam, he did come back and say to me, we'll see, Anna, with what we talked about before. But again, lap 2 here, and not a competitive sprint there. So I'm not sure what these riders are doing. This is the first time I've kind of seen a men's division like this not have about at least 5 riders out the front with huge orange numbers. So a little bit of a walk away again as we looks like we're jetting back to the women's race. Another rider off the front from TBR Smilehorn. She's had a great sprint. That must have just been the 3rd sprint that they've gone through. About 10 kilometers to go. So they're going to come around this next lap. They're approaching this last sprint. Then they'll come around for that end of lap 3, and then they'll be hitting that glass road at the bottom end of the course. So people will be feeling a bit nervous now. Looks like this rider from TBR Smilehorn has taken an early attack to hopefully just roll over with first across the line points. But they are catching up pretty quick here with that feather. And look who it is. Lam Kong. She has got the timing, but M from France coming up very fast with the aero power up. Looks like Kong could have just dropped that feather around about now instead of as early as she did. But very interesting use of power ups there in the women's B category. Good to see it a lot more competitive than the men's field.
Yeah, Lam Kong has been super consistent. Carolina Strasser, she went very early, I think possibly a little bit too early based on the timing in the end there. Margot Jacquet, she has been in the top 10, in the points for each one, and she's just been getting better and better. I'd love to see the split times between her sprint then and the fastest through segment of Lam Kong in the earlier laps, because that was certainly a real standout sprint from her. You can see the distance that she opened up there from Kong, who, again, maybe the timing was off there a bit, but Jacquet, she nailed that one. So she might just be finding her legs. Now over to the men's here, Anna, and again, Evans, you're right, he went into the orange early, but he just kind of rolled it in, and with quite a big gap in the end there.
Huge numbers there from a couple of those riders behind as they were dropping aero power-ups right. I love that position you see on the avatar where they're right out of the saddle. That's usually when they're hitting the big orange numbers, around that 11, 12 watts a kg. But easy rollover by Evans, and then it looks like Schwartz from AHDR Blowfiles, followed by at Swole Cyclist, and then Velo Club. Yeah, so those are some interesting names, I've got to say. But yeah, more competitive behind that leader. So I'm surprised they let Evans get away, but he probably won't have the fastest time segment because they were coming very quickly through the pack behind him. Now, this is an interesting part of the course I'd like to touch on. So this is coming into their last lap. This is that climb that goes up to about 8%. I'm wondering if anybody from the team is going to attack here, hoping to get away before they hit those glass roads of the climb. Does not look like there's a concerted effort to get away. I see a few 1 second gaps off the back, so it is stringing out. They are pushing the pace. As you can see here, some of the riders off the front, it's stringing out. The Z-Sun rider is getting a little bit in danger territory. That's Carmen from Z-Sun, but has reconnected back on, and looks like they're all going to stay together to the base of this climb, I do think.
Yeah, this is truly the definition of the calm before the storm, isn't it? Where they're all rolling along, Kong's just finding her legs at the back there, taking a drink perhaps. This is the time. Pretty soon they're going to head onto those glass roads and there's absolutely no place to hide. Different to the other laps, we're also not seeing any power-ups get dropped because this is where they're saving them all for that final ascent up. And the glass roads are actually pretty intimidating because once you get on them, you just know that it's red line all the way to the finish. There's a little bit of kind of mental intimidation going on here as well, a little bit of cat and mouse before the climb.
I've got to say, one of the coolest things I saw this week is one of my teammates who lives in New York City actually went and reconned the course in real life, which I thought was absolutely epic.
That's unreal.
Went and rode around.
Did she
the Gotham grind reverse. No, but unfortunately there's no glass roads and flying cars, so she couldn't actually recon the climb, but managed to do this part of the course. It was awesome. You don't often get to do that, so I thought that was very, very cool that someone could go recon it in real life, because apparently it follows extremely closely, if not exact, the GPS files around Central Park. So the ups and downs, all the twists and turns. So really cool. You can go ride it in real life as well.
It is very cool. I mean, it is a real shame that there's not the dinosaurs and the flying animals and the sloths and the glass roads and all the wonderful things we see in the Zwift world. It's a shame they're not in the real life as well, but it does make it a little bit interesting. I wonder if there's any New Yorkers who get on this Zwift course and give it a go, especially in the winter months. That might be a nice little way to stay connected to the outside. Of course, we're coming into winter in Australia and New Zealand, Anna, so we can expect to see the Aussies in greater numbers over the next couple of months as everybody puts their road bike back on the trainer, other than venturing outside into the chilly weather.
Oh, exactly. It's kicking up a storm here in New Zealand at the moment, and I do know we have the Anzac racing on this weekend, so a bit of Aussie versus New Zealand, which would be fun to see. We do see a lot of Aussie flags out in this APAC division. A little bit late for the Kiwis, unless people sort of like racing at 10 o'clock at night. I think it gets up too much of a buzz before you need to go to sleep. Have a good hot chocolate or Horlicks with a good book. You're going to have reading at midnight to be able to get any sleep after that. I'm a nana.
I was about to say, okay, Grandma, make your hot drink there. It's like putting Vegemite in, a spoon of Vegemite in hot water, right?
It's delicious. Like, don't knock it. It's nutritious and delicious, and it's a surefire way to go straight to sleep. So I will be having that after the commentary tonight, so that I can make sure I get a good sleep for the racing tomorrow, because this does look very, very brutal, and they're not even hitting the climbs yet, as we see Simone from the Bombshells just pushing a little bit of 4 watt per kg up there, which is quite high for the B categories. So what they're going to do now is they're going to bypass this left-hand turn that they've been taking the last couple of laps. It took them past the baseball fields. They'll go straight, do this kind of S bend, you can see in the top right-hand corner, and then they're going to hit that glass road, and there's a big climb that goes at a 6-7% grade just to get onto that glass road. Maybe some early attacks there. After that, it sort of rolls, flattens out a bit, and then we hit the climb proper. About 6K to go.
This is definitely the speed is picking up. I mean, it's nearly 10% downhill, but to be over the 65k an hour, they're not actually rolling. They're still putting a fair bit of power out here as well. Carolina Strasser, she's been pretty zippy in the sprints, even if the timing on the last one was off. Sometimes we saw last season that they used those intermediate sprints to almost warm their legs up a little bit before the final. So sometimes we thought that maybe they were trying to get the points and just get out of there, when in fact they were just kind of warming up to the finish. And important to note as well that this kind of course, the New York City after party, it's not like Innsbruck or something like that. It's not a 30-minute climb. It's 1.5 kilometers. It'll take them about 4 minutes to get. We can still expect some pretty good performances by some of the riders who do have a lot of speed in their legs. Lam Kong did particularly well on this course in the last season. So even though she's been the one accruing most of those sprint points, I think we can expect to see that continue up this climb.
Yeah, we are just seeing that climb coming in now. It went up to about 6%, drops back a little, and then it'll kick up again. They're going to round this left-hander and just see the archers hitting that glass road. I'd be starting to feel nervous because we're already seeing, got Heidi there from Bombshells pushing up to that 4.6. This is a definite dig from her end, but the riders back keeping up with her relatively well. I'm seeing a few dropping about 2% off the pace. Looks like potentially Martin there and Lucy just getting a little bit hung out to dry at the back. This is a definite concerted attack from Heidi. The others are falling off, but could she hold this for the next, what does it look like, about 5 kilometers? Oh, it's a big ask.
Well, Lucy Isdale, our TBR Smile On rider, she's actually sitting pretty comfortably. If you look, I'm just delving into the Zwift power files, Anna. I'm kind of catching your data bug, and I'm taking a real look at all of these numbers. And there's a few that are certainly working harder than some others, but that is all about to change. They're on the glass road now. There is nowhere to hide.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I sometimes do is I'll click back and fan view another rider and just see what their heart rate is. But do not get caught out when you look at the heart rate of a 16-year-old who you don't realize is 16 and think, wow, they must be on the limit. Their heart rate is 185.
Yeah, very good point.
Because they're just cruising at 185. They can push up another 20 beats a minute. So, yeah, don't get caught out on that. You kind of have to do a little bit more research into who you're riding with. But this is impressive here from Heidi.
You're maybe dissing my whiteboard approach, actually. You're like, yeah, good on you, Kate, but come on, delve a little bit deeper. I need a new whiteboard and I need some new markers. I've got a bit of ground to make up. Heidi here, she is really leading the way here. She's certainly throwing those watts down, because to be sitting up around 240 watts is certainly at or above threshold here for her. And that gap, it's not wildly opening up, Anna, but it's also not closing at all. 3 to 4 seconds. You think that the magic number's 15 seconds in order for a breakaway to kind of succeed. But this is a bit of a different one, isn't it? Because they're within the final 5 kilometers here. And if it's a solo rider and it's just uphill from here, you really only need 1 or 2 seconds to really string everybody out.
Yeah, she's pushing. That just went up to 5 watts on a flat area of the course and a downhill. I think she knows, Heidi knows her game well. One, she's got the Tron bike, so she's been on, done a lot of riding, but she knows this downhill that's going to negative 7%, that group behind has the advantage of speed and pack. So she's not really at the beginning of that. She wasn't dropping her pace too much, but we are seeing that gap coming down. Was 5 seconds, now it's 4. This is a good attack, though. It's only downhill for that short portion, then it goes flat, and they're going to be kicking up fairly soon into some more rollers as they come up to the top end of the course where the KOM is. 3 seconds now. I think, unfortunately, she will get caught. And that would have been an attack I'd like to see go away. Question is, Bombshells. You've got Simon there in the pack. Is Simon going to do a counter attack? That's, I think, what would be key here. They're about to hit another uphill. Can Simon counter attack over the top?
Well, Simon's got a pretty solid power profile as well, so it could definitely be what's going on in terms of team tactics. We just had the segment points for the men pop up there, but here we're looking at the B men and Evans again. Did he just take another sprint, or did he get rolled? Anna, that was a bit of a tight one, but looks like he's got some left.
And I think that's maybe end of day for him. Look at that, going very quickly to the back of the pack, 3 watts a kg, and wow, I think that. That was the end of the day for him. It was just there to get sprint points. Really good team tactics there. I'm not sure what team he's on. I'll have a look.
That totally lights out. I mean, he will probably finish tonight, but roll it into the finish. That is tactically a very smart way to ride. And honestly, I'm not sure that every rider across the teams would be prepared to do that for the team. So I really applaud that. Not just for him, but as a team tactic. Says a lot about his character.
Yeah, I like that. Sure does. I'm liking Evans. Great character. There we go. Maybe not a climber, but he's put in the watts for the team and got in a whole lot of sprint points. And then we can see he dropped off the pack.
No dissing the sprinters here, Anna. You may not have a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers, but for those of us that do, it can be quite a blow when you've done all of that. And I mean, incidentally, Adam Evans rides for the blowflies. So there you go.
Oh, nice. Actually, I did have a question for you. Is how do you, this is lap number 3 that we've seen them sprinting for. How do you pick up the ability to sprint under high fatigue? So there's one thing sprinting when you're fresh. How do you do it when you've ridden for 30 kilometers, pretty high intensity?
Yeah, I mean, it's just about training it. It's about not doing those high intensity efforts until you are doing them under quite a lot of fatigue. So it might mean at the end of a session going out and doing it. And we used to do that a lot in training. We'd do really heavy sessions and then at the end we do sprint work. And it always felt like we were sprinting in slow motion, but it does help the body really adapt to producing some anaerobic power under quite a lot of fatigue load. But if you don't practice it, you will not have it. There's very few people that are just born with that natural ability. And often, I think, Anna, when you see the riders who can do that, you know that they're quite dedicated to the art and that they're quite good students of the sport. So I always really like seeing that.
Okay, that's really good to know. I might put some of that into my training, maybe after the baby's born, but could be good to actually have some sprint prowess in Zwift because I've never won a sprint segment and I just feel like it would be so satisfying.
Well, when you're on the other side of the small human journey that you're on, Anna, I'll take you out on Zwift and I'll give you a few sprint sessions. We can have some fun with that.
Get my ass kicked by Kate. Awesome.
Yeah, well, look, you've got your whiteboard. I'll show you some stuff that you can't put on a whiteboard.
Oh, no, I'm going to get schooled.
What have you started?
I know, this is bad. I did see a couple of riders just get dropped off before. Goke there from Bombshells as well has been dropped, unfortunately, from her teammate's own attack. It didn't look like Simon attacked over the top. This group has come together quite well, but a very small group now. Looks like about, just counting, they're about 12, I'm going to roughly estimate, and they've just started the KOM now proper. They're hitting that 15% grade. Like I said, it goes down into 2 flatter portions on the way up, but at the moment, very, very hard work. But I would imagine we'll see the feathers being dropped near the top. Already riders dropping off the back here. Leanna from Z Sun. Simon's pushing some high power up here, but it looks as though Kong, of course, Lam Kong up there, dot from France. Looks like that might be a bit of a 1-2 battle going on.
I quite like, on paper, if I can be brave enough to say it, I quite like Liz Martin. So if she can hang in there up here, I actually think that she might be a very good one to watch. Lucy Isdale is another one who looks the goods on paper. Of course, we know on paper can sometimes be vastly different to what happens in game. And something else we also know is that we don't know what point of their season they're in. So even if we've seen them produce incredible power and wattages, some of them toward the back end of their form and others certainly toward the front of their form. But this is a strong ride happening here from the Bambay. They've been pretty consistent
Oh,
today, haven't they? With especially with Lan Kong. So V's pushing off the front here. Vicky van der Bigelaar, she is having a very good crack at it. I'm not sure that she'll ride away from it, but she's certainly split the group up and given that team a lot more options. Jaquette is the only one that is able to jump across there. Lam Kong is sitting there in third. She doesn't need to win this in order to accrue the crucial number of points to take the lead, to take the win overall here because of what she's done in that intermediate sprint. But some real dominance happening here. 3 Bam Babes inside the top 4. So that is a good tactical ride from them, as well as just some pure physicality. Anna, look at them spread this race out.
these Bam Babes, I mean, Sky, V here, Lam Kong. But what we are seeing, it looks like Margot Jacquet from Z-Sun is just putting in the effort now. Just put a little dig, but V is all over that. And Sky up over the 5 watts. Keep in mind, these are B category riders pushing up into that 5 watt category. That is truly impressive. This isn't an A category group. This is B cat. So, I mean, these numbers, these guys are going above and beyond to win this race because they know the points. Remember, for this KOM, fastest time segment, first across line, and the finish line points. I mean, this is a huge haul if they can get it. And look at Bam Babes, first, second at the moment. Looks like Margot has just kind of fallen off the pace here. It looks like Sky maybe might take this out with just her teammate behind.
Yeah, Sky Talbot really pushing away. You could just see on that side shot before exactly how steep it is coming through here. This is very much like the Cowberg in the Amstel Gold Race, actually. Anna, where they head up that super steep section, but they do have that flat over the top of the Bemelerberg, almost heading into a bit of a sprint. So a very good choice by the team at WTRL to get this course in game this week. But it is on. Jaquette looks to be coming past here. She's dropped the power up perfectly, accelerated away, but Lam Kong is the one with that feather, Anna. But can she bridge this gap? It is opening up. There is not far to go. Sprinting all the way to the line. I think Jaquette's going to take this out.
Wow, Margot Jaquette from Z-Sun played that perfectly. I thought she was dropping off. It looked like she was dropping off that Bam Babes train, who have come in for, looks like second, third, and fourth with Lam Kong, Sky, and V. But wow, Margot Jaquette from Z-Sun, that would be an amazing haul of points. Unfortunately, not too many teammates around, so just looks like she's the one who's pulling it all up for the team. But very, very impressive finish to that race. You know, you think someone's out and they're obviously hiding something. She didn't even have the feather. That was what Lam Kong had, and still managed to take the big W.
And that was just Liz Martin sneaking in at the back there. I think that is a big name to watch for the future. Now we are over with the men in the A. We're chasing them now. They don't have far to go either. Remember, it's 37.1 kilometres. They're inside that final 50k an hour they're travelling, which is pretty impressive, Anna, given the steep slopes they have been up already. They are not showing the signs of fatigue at all so far. Let's take a look at who's on top so far based on the segment, and it's Ben Jones, Deepak Elite, not surprised to see them up there. Otstop from Relentless Warriors in third. Deepak again with James Bevan. We know him as a sprinter, sitting in fourth. Certainly Deepak looked to be dominant in that top 10 so far, but that doesn't go to show what might happen up here. Sam Lindsay, he's a name to watch, I think, in this kind of sprint finish, certainly in the last sprint finish, maybe sprint up the climb. But the last time they raced on here, Sam Lindsay absolutely smashed it up this climb. So I feel like he's the man in waiting.
Yeah, and look at that strategy they had. Ben Jones taking out a huge number of points on those sprints, 53 to the next lot of points, which was 38 down. So Deepak Elite have come in with a strategy. You've got Ben and James hauling a massive amount of points through the sprints. And then you've got Fabian, Sam, coming in, I'm maybe focusing on the climb. I know Sam loves his climbing, and they are sort of up on this glass road area, very close to the finish. And I think this will be full focus for Sam Lindsay and those Deepak riders. But who could mess up the game? Who got Relentless as well? And we know that they have some great strategies out there. It's always, what is it, Anarchy and Chaos that they've got. So they'll want to mix it up. You've also got the Evo Warriors and those pink, magenta kind of Tron bikes. They're pretty good too, but I'd be keeping an eye on those bright yellow Tron bikes with the black and white kit. That's Deepak.
Yeah, Anarchy and Chaos. That's not at all an intimidating name. Ben Hill, if I'm right, we always hear about the women's plus ones, but now we're going to hear about Ben Hill's plus one, who's a world champion on the track, Rebecca Wyasak. So she, I know, is in the wings helping him out a lot. Sam Lindsay on the move here, as well as Cutler. And Anna, we expected this, but Aero are throwing it down. They are making Deepak work for this if they want to get there. It's getting pretty close to this finish line now. Is this going to be another surprise
Oh,
jump out of the pack? But they're on the steep part here. Oh, this is really where the power is burning. Look at all those orange numbers.
oh,
Can
it's
Sam Lindsay
brutal.
catch him? He's getting pretty close.
Oh, I mean, T Cutler there was hitting 12 watts a kg, sprinting into that 14 percenter. They're going through some of the tunnels here, and this is where it gets really hard because you've sprinted up. He's dropped an arrow, which is a perfect time to drop it, in my opinion, here. If he's got a little break, 50 meters to go, dropping that, actually, that could have been too early. The road, like we saw on the women's race, well, it's flat here, then it's going to kick up. Sam Lindsay, 1 second back, not riding anywhere near the watts per kg, but he does have that power up that is now run out, but I think he might get it. I think he may get this. T Cutler from Aero still pushing those orange numbers against Sam Lindsay's 6 watts a kg. I think he's definitely got this. Sam's got nothing left in the tank. Like we thought at the beginning, a race of attrition, massive gap here. Some orange numbers coming in, but I just think a bit too little too late. They're fighting now for second place as T Cutler coming through to take this race number 3.
Well, Tim Cutler takes it, and what a ride from him. He will take it ahead of Sam Lindsay and James Bevan. They're teammates from Deepak. Bevan, he's usually known as a sprinter, but what a performance on the climb here. A great ride from them overall. Devola taking the third spot there. A very good day for Deepak, that is for sure, but a very good day for Aero, Tim Cutler. What a ride. Anna, I think he caught them by surprise. Everybody is so busy talking about Deepak and Relentless and what's going on there. But for Tim Cutler, he took the bull by the proverbial horns and he made that look easy.
Yeah, I did talk about it in season 1 or 2, I think. If you're a rider who's not so well known in the pack, you can get away with those kind of tactics because people aren't watching your name. Like you said, people be watching all of the D-Pack riders, seeing what they were going to do and just follow those wheels. And that makes a huge opportunity for a lesser known rider in the pack to just run away with it, like we saw there with Cutler. I mean, also huge amount of kudos to him for how much energy he must have expended throughout that 37k ride to then push those kind of numbers at the end. So very, very impressive, both from the women's racing and the men's racing tonight.
Yeah, look, Tim Cutler in particular, he's certainly not the kind of profile rider that you would necessarily think on a climb, but that's where we need to break it down a bit and consider that it's less than 4 minutes. It's around the 3 minute mark by the time they were really picking up those speeds on those flat ascents. And he's a very high power rider. So he's got an incredible 5 minute power, very dangerous. Sometimes you've got to take the topography out of it and look at it more broken down into those powers and what kind of power can they put out over a 5 minute mark. If it is far superior than a lot of those climbers, well, you know, even a 14% section can't even that out. What I do know is that Tim Cutler will have a very big circle around his name in the future weeks, Anna.
Oh yeah, I mean he's going to have a target on his back now. You can't do that. You can't do that twice and have people be fooled. We are just going to follow the men's. Sorry, the men's B category race. They're just hitting this glass road climb as well. The climbing is pushing up into those top numbers. So where we saw this is about where Cutler attacked before, managed to make a huge break, but it looks like Nabe here from Japan just getting passed by Squirrel and that at Swole cyclist who we saw as a prevalent rider in some of the sprints earlier on. Burrito being dropped, not at a great time because you don't have much drafting benefit anyway on a 9%. Probably drop that on the flatter portions would be better. And early use of the feather, again, it's sort of maybe that rider is struggling a little bit, would be better to maybe drop that in that final part. But yeah, it looks like they're dropping back now. That feather's run out. And this is going to be a much different finish in this B category to what we saw in the A category, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not funny for the riders out there, but sometimes a sweaty finger means that you can drop a power up at a slightly inopportune time when you don't necessarily mean to. I feel like a lot of the time we're like, oh, really? Are they doing that? That is what's going on. But there's also the sheer desperation of drop it now or risk getting dropped. 17% this goes up to. That is just nasty. David Squirrel, he's leading the way at the moment, but that gap is not opening up so much as he's giving Weatherall quite a nice little lead out there for Max Weatherall. He's sitting nice and tight in there in second wheel. So what are they going to do from here? This is a much bigger bunch, like you said, than we saw in the A. So they will now, if they're not careful, Anna, I think they'll look at each other a little bit of cat and mouse, and it'll give someone the opportunity to snake back on and jump over the top before they have time to react. So Tom Nabe, he's getting back on the back now. This is a good time for him if he has anything left in the tank to hit them. But Willie, there's a flat section now, and then they do kick up to the finish. But we're looking at a bunch sprint up this little climb section here, so definitely a little bit different, a little bit harder than that one-on-one racing we saw in the A's.
Yeah, we're just seeing Swole cyclists there putting in a bit of a little attack before this climb. I think that's definitely a rider to watch out for. Look at that dirt rider there, though. Stewart has dropped the feather. Perfect. Going into a massive sprint with Weatherall ahead of them. But that feather was a perfect drop there from Weatherall. And there was a dirt rider who had it too. But Weatherall has pulled ahead with a huge watt advantage. Around 12 watts a kg per compared to the 10 watts for the riders behind. So wow, very, very good riding there from Weatherall. That took me by surprise. It was a very quick attack on that climb. They left it right to the last minute.
Well, he'd had some good legs earlier on the slightly lower slopes, and the timing was perfect there. You can really stuff the timing up here in the finish, but that was a very good show of how to win from a small group. And often, Anna, I think that the psychology behind winning from a small group up a climb is very different than trying to win solo. But look at these riders. They're pushing all the way to the line. They've been going pretty quick. 30K in around the 52-minute mark is clipping along pretty well considering the finish they had as well.
And look at that name I'm just seeing pop up. I'm seeing Kath McKay there, only 30 seconds behind this group. Jess Bemrose, just about a minute 30 behind. So Kath, wow, 30th in this BCAT mixed group. I'm not sure if she's the first female through, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. That is some very, very strong riding here from Kath McKay. Let's see if she can put in a little sprint at the end, or if this has just been a huge race of attrition and she'll just hold on to the line.
Well, Anna, if I can see Karen Lee is our first woman, and she is sitting around about 10th spot there for the day. So this is an incredibly impressive ride from the ladies overall here. So Karen Lee is our first in, but Kath McKay, what a cracking ride and finish for her. Oh, she nearly got rolled on the line there. I'm glad she didn't, to be honest. A great ride there for her. And I'm just really glad to see them racing in this league as well.
Oh, and not just racing. I mean, They've done extremely well. Looking at Jess Bemrose here, great rider, 4 kids, out of the Gold Coast, I think, in Australia, and just such a strong rider, but also a lot on her plate. So to be able to also turn up and race in a B category mixed division, be 35th, very, very awesome here and
It's
very
pretty good, isn't
inspiring
it?
from these women. I'm loving this.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I think when they introduced the mixed categories is what they did envisage. And I think when they first introduced them in season 2, people were a little bit uh, slow in the uptake and maybe still having the women race with the women and the men with the men because, hashtag society and that's what we're used to. But I'm very glad to see that this is happening because this is really the only section of the sport where it happens by choice. Often when the women race with the men, it's because there isn't a women's category. But it's pretty inspiring actually when they do have the choice to see them making this one and a great performance. I can't wait to see what the ladies can do in the future weeks as well. So, yeah, good on them. Kath McKay and Jess Bemrose, the names that we saw a lot of in the A category for the women in the last season, and maybe now a lot in the B season as well. And a very different finish for them too, Anna, with a bunch sprint of sorts up that climb rather than that strung out one by one that we saw a lot happening across in those other grades. Now, let's take a look at the results and see what happened out on board. It'll take a minute to get those up. But yeah, Anna, I think it'll be interesting to see the points because sometimes we get very caught up in what happens at the finish of the race and we forget that it's actually a points race. So what the points you can accrue with the fastest through segment and the first across the line from those sprints. I think that can often skew the end result. But it is, isn't it, when we see them go across the line in such spectacular fashion, it's very easy to go,
Mm,
wow, what a great ride.
that was
But
amazing.
especially in the
Yeah, I mean, I
women,
think.
seeing Lam Kong dominate early was
Oh,
pretty impressive.
and seeing Deepak dominate as well, but then you saw Aero with that Cutlerite in the A division take out so many points at the end. I mean, that must be sort of a fastest time segment as well. So, yeah, could they have sort of uprooted Deepak's top spot, or is Deepak with their team tactics doing better? I mean, it will be good to see the results. I know for sure watching this, I'm switching my bike selection to Tron. There were just way too many Trons out there. And I think someone made a good point. Aesthetically, the Trons just look better in New York on that glass road, and I'm all about aesthetics. So, yeah, I'll be
Yeah,
rocking the
you're
Tron,
all
I
about
think,
the
tomorrow.
fashion points.
Exactly. So I ditch in the disc and putting that Tron out there because they do look fabulous on those glass roads. Very futuristic.
So, Anna, with more leagues coming up, where of course APAC kicks it off, what do you think the lessons are, especially for the Prem League riders who'll be watching this broadcast to see how the tactics have unfolded?
Yeah, Prem Division is just such a different kettle of fish, I think. I'm surprised there weren't more team tactics. I always want to see a whole team, do a massive attack over the sprint, try and get away, maybe make it a little team time trial. I remember in season 1 or 2, one of the teams I was racing with, when you did the KOM twice, they went over the KOM and ended up getting away and kind of just had a team time trial. I love seeing where they've done something like that is hugely risky, but if it pays off well. So I was surprised not to see a little bit more of that. We did see some riders going off the front having little digs, but they kind of got brought back relatively quick. But teammates, maybe they could attack over the top of that. I think that's good lessons from what we've learned here is that just don't leave it to that last climb. I think maybe try and get a breakaway before that climb. Then, what have you got to lose? If you're not up against the climbers anyway, you may as well put in some attacks on the flats.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do remember from the last season in community leagues, one team in particular who have now stepped up to Prem, but who did that a lot was Beast Mode. So they were a team that
Mm,
sometimes you were like, what on earth are they doing? Because it didn't necessarily seem like the smartest move at the time. But what they really did was try out every conceivable tactic. I feel like to a
mhm.
degree they had a play by play book and they were like, okay, this week let's try that one. and
Yeah.
see what happens. But you've got to do that because then you can objectively on your whiteboard have a strength and weaknesses kind of analysis of it all.
Yeah, you may as well use the sort of community leagues as a big sandpit, try a whole bunch of different things, and yeah, some will work and some won't. But if you're already, 3, 4 points ahead of the second place team at race number 3, just go for it. What do you got to lose? So, yeah, for any of the teams racing and the next few divisions coming up, I just say give it a shot, throw something out there, make it entertaining and interesting.
So we do have an 8-week season, and here in season 3. So how important are the standings at this point? I reckon that last season, by this stage, there are a few teams that were dominating, and that almost changed the mood of how the racing played out. But in a couple of the communities in particular, we saw some people who didn't start that red hot, but really charged very late on. I think, Anna, that there could be some different tactics playing out here where some of the teams want to start with a bit of dominance and almost put a bit of a stamp on their community and how they may race. And there's others that are almost sleepers, just sitting in the background, quietly accruing some points and planning to make a very strong finish.
Yeah, one thing I've seen really interesting over, especially last season, is the individual riders coming to the forefront instead of the back half. The reason for that is some of the Prem divisions are now starting to cherry pick riders from community and just take them into their Prem team. So they're not maybe they're in a team that's sitting third or fourth down. Suddenly you start to see these riders just pushing through and having races of their lives. And it's because they're trying to, put their head above the weeds and get picked for a Prem team if their current community team may not make it. So that's the stuff I find super interesting in those last few weeks. It's more of those individual stars that are starting to come out. And then suddenly you see them racing in Prem. Paige Bolt would be one of them. She was racing community and now racing for 2024. So that's what I love seeing about this community division as well, is just the emergence of talent, which would be quite cool to see in the next few races.
And they have tightened the rules around that a little bit as well to make sure that not too many riders are able to jump across different teams to almost instill a little bit more loyalty amongst the squads.
For sure. And it looks like we do have some of the results coming through now. So we'll have a look at how things are played out in tonight's race.
Alrighty, let's take a look at this men's mixed, as we saw. Some ladies in there, APAC Division 1. Tim Cutler, what a win from him, the Aero rider, taking the win ahead of Sam Lindsay. James Bevan sitting in third. O'Brien in fourth. Fabian Devola in fifth. Ben Hill coming in sixth. They're not huge time gaps here either, but certainly a very solid finish. Partridge Madsen in seventh. Ott Stott in eighth. Relentless, the first Relentless in the bunch. That's an interesting one, but he's a standout rider. Kubo in ninth and Sheem taking out the 10th spot there.
And that was quite interesting just to note there that there were 4 Aero riders in the top 7 and only 3 DPAC riders. So that'll be interesting to see how that all washes out in the total points. But do head to WTRL.racing for all of the points. It looks like we may just have a bit of a delay on presenting them at the end of the show tonight. But yeah, that's a place for all your results and to check where your team is standing and who your competition is.
Yeah, absolutely. So head over to that website and check it all out. Thank you so much for joining us. I love, Anna, that this season APAC opens up each week of the league. So we've got all of the other communities, of course, coming up over the subsequent hours. The Aussies and Kiwis will get a little bit of sleep, but the rest of the world is just waking up. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you same time, same place next week for week 4 of season 3.